What it is, everybody. Hold your horses. It's going down. We are going down with the ship, it looks like. It is January 20th, 2026, and we are exactly 1 year into the Trump presidency. And now we might be able to blame him for bringing America down entirely just because he really wants Greenland. Well, that's not the only reason. We have other things to blame too, but it's a serious day. It's a serious day financially for you and your loved ones. People don't like America anymore. So today is the Sell America Day, the beginning of it. Stock market was down. The Dow Jones was down 870 points. The NASDAQ was down 560 points. Bitcoin was down a lot. It's trading around 88,000 right now. Gold was way up, big day, biggest day in a long time. So I'm going to tell you about it. People have been talking about the Great Reset. Some people have speculated that gold may become money again. And it looks like that might be happening. So I'm going to tell you some of the various things going on in the world today, including what's happening in Japan, which is very dangerous for us, what's happening in Europe, what's happening in Davos, where Trump is going to speak tomorrow. People don't like us anymore, and we actually need them. We need them to buy our stupid debt so we can live like kings while the rest of the world is our slaves. They're just starting to wake up. It took a little push, but now the rest of the world is waking up. Why do we do that? Why do we let Americans benefit off of our labor by buying their debt and holding it as if it has value? Well, now maybe no longer. So I'm going to tell you the various things that are happening. There's an article today at CNBC. It says Sell America. That's the headline of this show. Sell America is what people are thinking. People might be turning away, as they did a lot of last year, from holding our dollars and thinking that they have value. And instead, they're buying things that actually historically have value, like gold. So this show is not for financial advice, although we did give financial advice a lot over the years. One of the very earliest shows I did was about silver, and silver is doing quite well. I would have been better off talking about Bitcoin back then, 10 years ago. And I saw some people saying that calling the demise of Bitcoin is a bad strategy over time, and it has been. But you want to be careful with what you hold these days. So we're going to talk about it. Silver's had a good day today. Gold had a better day today. They're both up a little bit in after hours markets, which just opened. Gold is now at 47.75, higher than in the thumbnail for this show. Frank says gold will hit 5,000 soon. Yeah, it might. Frank says the petrodollar is on thin ice. The dollar is on thin ice. Today was one of the biggest down days in a long time. The biggest down day since Liberation Day, when we announced the big tariffs. Tariff king, Donald Trump. Trump did a press conference today. I only have one clip from it. I, unfortunately for me, listened to the whole stupid thing. He showed up with a big book and handed out a flyer with all of his accomplishments in his first year. The flyer had 365 accomplishments, one of which was taking away Hunter Biden's security. But you can imagine what the other 364 were. So if he wants to take credit for something, well, he could take credit for the collapse of America. Maybe, all because and there's another story today about how much money he has made personally since becoming president, which is at provably $1.4 billion just for himself. So that's nice, being president and making money, especially when you sell worthless meme coins and just rape your supporters. So Trump has been making money. He's happy. He's got his new board of peace set up, which I think mostly dictators have joined so far, from what I can tell. But we're still threatening people. People in Greenland are making fun of us for being fentanyl users. So I'll show you that. We are still threatening Greenland. Scott Bessent says not to retaliate against us, but it sounds like they're going to retaliate. I have a number of speeches from Davos, one of which is very enlightening regarding gold becoming money again. Basically, a lot of the conspiracy theory, somebody said in my chat, I'm waiting for the conspiracy part. Well, there's a conspiracy theory that we'd go back to the gold standard. And at Davos, at the World Economic Forum, where Trump is going to appear once again tomorrow to just say how great he is, which he's very good at. Well, actually, it wasn't that good today. It was just it almost seems like he's lost it entirely. He just went on and on and on about accomplishments and so forth, but it was very strange. It was a very strange press conference today to celebrate 1 year of Donald Trump X2. Donald Trump's the second time around. Someone in my comments said, oh, is this just a non-objective TDS show? And I said, no, it's an objective TDS show. I don't think Trump has done much good so far, and people don't like him, which is also important. People really don't like him, and now they really don't like us. They think we did a lot of good things in the past, but they're starting to have doubts about us, our country, our people. We have the Winter Olympics coming up where they can express their displeasure. And then we have the World Cup, which they might withdraw from. Some of these countries we're threatening right now with tariffs. Once again, Scott Bessent says, do not retaliate. That's a warning. Do not retaliate against us. But we're going into a full-blown trade war, which didn't work out well last time. So there's one hope, one trade that is anti-gold and pro-U.S. stocks and Bitcoin maybe, and that's the taco trade. So some people are talking about the taco trade, which is that Trump will chicken out and decide, I was just kidding about Greenland, and I was just kidding about tariffs, etc. Because he does that when things get really bad, which they did last time, Liberation Day. After Liberation Day, the dollar crashed, bond yields went way up. Well, now the dollar's crashing and bond yields are going way up. Those mortgage rates are up again. They're right back to where they were before he announced that we were buying $200 billion in mortgage-backed securities. This genius move to make houses not cheaper, but more affordable. But now houses will really get cheaper. In fact, pretty much everything will get cheaper at first. Probably pretty much everything, especially stocks, Bitcoin, and real estate, as we go into an actual debt and liquidity crisis. So it's not fun. I don't think it's fun. Could be the end. I mean, really. So, which is what I've been talking about on my show, if you've been paying close attention. And even though I sell Bitcoin t-shirts, I have been saying Bitcoin is a risky thing to be involved with, and it's just getting riskier at the moment. Mostly because a lot of that has to do with Michael Saylor, which we can talk about if you want to. But theoretically, if Bitcoin were treated the way it is, which is as a safe haven asset, which is what it was designed for, Bitcoin was actually designed for days like today. It was actually designed for days like today. It should go up based on its design. It's meant to be like gold, the new gold, but people just don't see it that way, unfortunately. And then people like Michael Saylor made it super risky. So anyway, that's unfortunate. I still have some. But I offset it by buying digital gold too, actual digital gold. So thanks, not me. It is a big economic day today. I'm glad to be covering it because I'm always happy to talk about economics. Not my biggest shows, but some people say they like it, so that's good. We just want to talk about what's happening. It's things we've been talking about for a long time. People said, oh, like I've always predicted economic doom for 10 years. In 10 years, the stock market just kept going up. I did say to buy silver, and I did say to buy Bitcoin, which actually did very well. But today we're talking about, yeah, you still want to buy silver, allegedly, or gold, allegedly, in Minecraft. Buy gold in Minecraft. All right, we'll get started. We'll play the intro, and then we'll show you guys what people are talking about today. All right, thanks for joining me. Okay, cue musical intro. Boy, that's brilliant. I do think some things in the world are real. Like you guys. You guys are real. Most of you. Most of my listeners, I think, are not just in my head. I think I have the metrics to prove it. You've taken a leap of faith today. What is that sound? And I apologize if you take offense. I'm a little offended myself. Welcome to our show. Welcome to the future. What it is, joining you live from sunny California. It's a beautiful day today. I'm your host, Nathan Stoltman. And I bring you the news, the real news.
Let's step back from the sensational and be clear about what I mean. The monetary order is breaking down. Okay. What I mean by the monetary order is that fiat currencies and debt as a storehold of wealth is not being held by central banks in the same way. And that there was a change. The biggest market to move last year was the gold market, far better than the tech markets, right, and so on. And the U.S. markets underperformed foreign markets because of the fact you could see it in the numbers of the central banks and so on. So let's just look at the fact that on the other side of trade deficits and trade wars, there are capital and capital wars. And so as we're looking at that, and you reported what the stock market and so on, but you didn't report that the gold market is also up 3.
We did say that earlier this morning. Okay. It's up to record levels again, and silver.
Is you look at what is happening and why it's happening and who's buying it. So let's just take a moment on that capital war issue, okay? We know that both the holders of U.S. dollar denominated debt, which is money, and those who need it, the United States, are worried about each other, right? Mm-hmm. So if you have other countries who are holding it and they're worried about each other and we're producing a lot of it, that's a big issue, right? So you have to explain what is going on with fiat currencies, generally speaking. And now if you take the conflicts, you can't ignore the possibility that capital wars, in other words, maybe there's not the same inclination to buy U.S. debt and so on. We at least need to talk about those possibilities and find out who is buying and selling what that is behind these market movements. And what?
There you go. That's Ray Dalio. Billionaire Ray Dalio talks about a change in the world order and made sure that his children speak Mandarin because he thinks actually China is going to take over. Because every empire does the same thing over time, according to Ray Dalio. So before we talk about empires, I was going to title this maybe the collapse of an empire. Before I talk about that, let's talk about other ways, other money denominated things like coffees. I drink coffee. I use it to prepare for my show. You can support this show by going to buymeacoffee.com/lifttheveil, because super chats are disabled because this is still a harmful channel, but super chats are better at buymeacoffee.com/lifttheveil. They take a very small percentage and pay me relatively quickly. And I can turn it into coffee and sugar, actually 2 drugs, actually, which I use to enhance my abilities. So go to buymeacoffee.com/lifttheveil, buy me a coffee or 5 and leave a note, and I will read it at the end of every show, just like a super chat, no different. And coffee is one of the things that has gone up quite a bit in price. Gasoline is down, but when you walk places, you need coffee and caffeine is up, unfortunately. Coffee is up because of tariffs. So we don't appreciate that. So go to buymeacoffee.com/lifttheveil, or if you want to give direct, you can go to Cash App, and it's very simple. It's $LTV411. Lift the Veil 411. 411 is for information. So you can also buy t-shirts, though, which are totally immune to inflation, deflationary, actually, by going to our store at Truth Revolution Clothing, which is truthclothing.io. Shipped off some shirts today. You can buy them, and you should buy them in bulk because they are so inexpensive. This is a liquidation sale below wholesale pricing. Prices will not be going up. $10 and $5 t-shirts for the most part on this website. And they're all really cool, and they let people know that you are hip to the things like this propaganda baseball tee. We have a few of those left. Truth Matters baseball tee, our Question Everything t-shirts. We still have some of those left in stock. Bitcoin, it's the future still, most likely. And you can buy those shirts, but it's tough to wear them on days like today when Bitcoin is crashing. Bitcoin Saves, Crypto Future, Hodl, Bitcoin Saves sweatshirt. Check them out. $5, $10, $20 for the sweatshirt. You can get your Freedom of Faith shirts, which are made in America with American organic cotton, for $5, including a kid's design. You can buy a Question Everything in female styles. That's our most popular design. We have it in several female styles. Slouchies, female t-shirts. Really nice. Everything is very high quality. It is screen printed in America. So it's screen printed, so it lasts. It's not like other YouTubers sell with their drop shipped, digitally printed nonsense. These are really, really nice shirts, handpicked for you. So buy those while you can, in your size, while you can. Truthclothing.io. Okay. Oh, so what did Dalio say? People hold money. This is a show about money because it's important, because it's geopolitical in this case. People in 1944, after we won World War II, because we made the best stuff, we won World War II by making the best stuff. We had brilliant anti-Semites like Henry Ford, who made America great. Back when anti-Semites were accepted in society, Henry Ford made America great by inventing line production lines, and making things fast and cheap. And then he paid people more than anybody else so they could afford to buy the things he was making. We made assembly lines, and we dominated everything. And then we made the best tanks, ships, airplanes, and we fed everybody that stuff to win World War II against the Nazis, who were terrible, who also built things and also were responsible for an economic boom, which may have been based on debt, though. but also were responsible for they called it an economic miracle. Might have been based on methamphetamine, though, partially, because they also kind of invented that. That's why the Blitzkrieg went so well, because people could stay up for 2 or 3 days on prescription or over the counter, I believe, methamphetamine, pharmaceutical grade, actually, methamphetamine. So they innovated as well. They innovated in war through meth. So now our soldiers use that stuff too. We have things that keep you awake for days too. We have secret pills that can keep you awake for a couple of days without any downsides. We keep that secret though. Anyway, we dominated everything. World War II. So after World War II was over in 1944, we had the Bretton Woods Conference, and we also used real money. I don't know if we were the main country in the world. We have it written into our Constitution that to pay debts, they should be paid in silver and gold. And we don't follow that anymore. But in 1944, there was a Bretton Woods agreement where the US dollar was going to be used as the basis for all world currencies, because the US dollar was redeemable in the United States for gold. It was $35 an ounce back then, up from $20 an ounce after they confiscated it in 1933 and reset the value so that FDR could pay for his social programs. So that's originally it was $20 for an ounce of gold and $1 for an ounce of silver. That's the way it was for a long time. We didn't have inflation. Sometimes we did during war times, and then we'd have deflation afterwards, and we accepted that. So that's what happened in 1944 is we had the dollar, which was redeemable in gold for a fixed amount. And then everybody in the world pegged their currencies to the US dollar. So the dollar dominated, and then you could just hold US dollars and you could redeem them for gold, which was gold is like a OG Bitcoin. It's like worldwide money. Gold can always be redeemed for whatever, for other currencies, for anything. It's always been money forever. Not forever, but for a long time, 6,000 years, a lot longer than Bitcoin. And then silver too, we also used as money. And we actually made our money in 90% silver until 1964. So people got used to holding dollars as a store of value. Then we went to war in Vietnam, and also Lyndon B. Johnson did a lot of social programs, the Great Society programs, where we started printing more dollars than could be, and we had all the gold too. That was the other thing. We had almost all the gold in Fort Knox, supposedly. It's probably not in Fort Knox, and who knows how much we have now. But we had all the gold, lots of it, and we had the money that you could transfer for gold. But then we started spending a lot more. We started printing more money to fight the gooks in Vietnam. I'm just using that word because that's what the soldiers called them back then in Vietnam. And then we had to end that process. And they actually talked about that today in Davos, which is why I say the Great Reset is coming. So the conspiracy theory is that we are going back to a gold standard, which we might be forced to, because everything else sucks as a store of value, all fiat currencies, because they aren't based on anything. We tried to force people to, because we made the most stuff that people wanted to buy, and we bought a bunch of stuff with dollars, people became accustomed to holding dollars because they could always use them later, particularly to buy oil, because that's what we set up instead, was the petrodollar. So to make people still want to have dollars and hold them as value so that they could support our lifestyle, we forced Saudi Arabia to sell oil in dollars. So everybody would always need dollars. So then they became accustomed to holding dollars. And instead of holding actual dollars, you could hold debt, which is kind of the same thing. It's a little bit better because you get more dollars out of it. So that's what we set up. That is the new world order after 1944 was based on the US dollar being convertible to gold, and then it became convertible to oil. And people would just hold our dollars. And over time, we learned that instead of making things, we could just consume things and make other people make things. And then we could just, instead of working, we could just print money and our dollar would still hold its value because people would keep buying it because they might need it, because they would need it to buy oil or to buy stuff from us, or we would pay them in dollars and they would just hold on to them. But instead of working and making things, we decided instead we could just print money, and the value of the money would stay afloat because people would feel like there was always a demand for dollars because you have to buy oil and you might have to buy things from America, or America might give you dollars and you just hold on to them because they've been a pretty good store of value. So now the new world order, which appropriately is being announced these days, the Don Rowe Doctrine, people realize that America, that people are asking why they want to continue doing that for us. That's all. So now it might never, it might not be able to be unwound. Basically, like we might have lit a fire that actually we can't put out at this point. Even if Trump tacos, people might have just changed their mind because of Greenland, stupidly enough, because we want a chunk of ice that has some stuff underneath it, which is really hard to get out. And that actually we would have been allowed to dig it up anyway. So because of Greenland, which Trump and fucking Stephen Miller decided were really important for us, and we decided to start threatening our allies who have most of our debt, they're starting to have second thoughts. So that's the story of today. They're starting to have second thoughts, and they are thinking about why they're holding on to our debt and or our dollars, which are the same thing, and they're going to start selling them. And that's what happened today. Everybody is selling American stuff, stocks, bonds, which normally don't go down in value at the same time. They did today. American debt and American stocks went down the same day. And instead, people are buying things which you don't have to worry about the government for, which is gold and silver. So gold is up, silver is up, gold is, last time I checked, is still going up right now. So that's where we're at. So I'll show you guys what's going on. I'll show you what's going on now that I've kind of described it. But that's the history of the world. 1971 is when things began to fall apart in this country. That was the writing on the wall. Things were really amazing in the 1960s. You could make $1.25 an hour, federal minimum wage, $1.25 an hour, and you could support a family with that probably, because actually $1.25 in today's quarters, like let's say you were paid 5 silver quarters an hour, today that's worth over $100. So if we were financially responsible, well, if you just held on to that money, the equivalent in dollars, in silver or gold of what you used to get paid, it would be like you were making hundreds of dollars an hour right now for minimum wage in real money. And instead we have a federal minimum wage, which is actually $7 and something. And in 15 or 20, it's not it doesn't even come close to what you need to live today, because we relied on financial trickery for this long, for over 50 years. And now people are starting to figure it out, which is not good for our way of living. Unless you own gold or silver predominantly, it's not good for your way of living, because the other things that we invested in, if the order breaks down, those are going to crash in value this year, namely real estate and the stock market. So it's a scary time to be American, and it's probably a scary time for the rest of the world, because what's happening in Japan is even worse. Japan did it to the max, and we're able to get away with it forever. They have more debt per GDP than any country in the whole freaking world. And somehow they managed to not have inflation for a long time. And their debt, the yield on their debt was like zero through financial engineering. They were able to just print money and they don't have kids and they don't have immigrants. So they're able to maintain this beautiful country for an exceedingly long period of time. And people go there and say how amazing it is. But actually, Japan might be the center of where things are going extremely wrong, because the piper, what happens? Eventually, you have to pay. Eventually, you just have to pay. And that's what's happening in Japan, where bond yields went up a shitload today. It's nothing like America. It's like 7%, like 32 basis points. Their 10-year yield went up today. It's a 6 sigma move, 6 standards of deviation, which is what Besant is blaming on today's crash, not Greenland, but it's both. So everybody borrowed money from Japan and bought everything. I had to talk about the Japan carry trade like a number of shows ago, because this has been going on for a little while, and so far everything hasn't crashed. But trillions of dollars were generated from Japan because you could borrow their money for free, literally for free. You can make money for free for years and years and years and years and years. You'd borrow money from Japan, buy American things, American debt. This was a simple trade. You borrow money from Japan at 0% interest, or maybe even negative interest, invested in American debt where you get 3-4% interest, hold on to it, collect interest, and then when you're done making money with this American debt, you can just cash it in and then pay off your Japanese debt, and you made money just by doing literally nothing. That worked for a long time, and it worked so well and for so long that there were many, 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 many trillions of dollars that were invested all over the world, but particularly in the United States, where we're supposed to be the best. So today, things went negative, though, and we have the biggest companies in the world. We have NVIDIA, which is worth more than almost every country on earth. NVIDIA, it was down 4% today. They just make computer chips. Yeah, and then we have other companies that are also worth, like, they're the largest assets in the world were U.S. stocks. The largest asset class was NVIDIA. It was bigger than silver. Now silver is bigger. Now people are showing a preference for things that you don't need to rely on anybody else for, like gold and silver. So that's where we're at. Let me just show you some of the news today, now that we've talked about it. Okay, article on CNBC is called This is Sell America. Dollar, treasury prices, and gold tumble The US dollar fell, Treasury prices fall. See, this is the thing about holding US debt. It's very complicated. And that's why it's like it makes for difficult show material to talk about every single day. But the bonds, you hold on to them, but they're not liquid. In other words, like if you want to sell them before they mature. So the way a bond works, let's say a 30-year bond, is you buy it for, let's say you buy $1 million at 4%, or now it's almost 5% interest. You collect interest every year for 30 years. And then at the end of 30 years, you get your $1 million back. But in the middle, it's not necessarily worth $1 million. And the more interest rates go up, the less it's worth. Okay, let's see if we can describe that. You buy $1 million bond at 2% years ago, 2% interest years ago when interest rates were low. You still own it. You're collecting 2% interest, but interest rates have gone up to 5% if you buy $1 million today. So why would you spend $1 million on something that only yields 2% if you can buy new debt that yields 5%? So you pay less for the old debt. And so if people want to sell it, they lose money. So that's another reason that holding on to it is bad if yields are going up. If yields are going up, prices are going down. And then it can become like a spiral. So that's what we're looking forward to, an actual a sovereign debt crisis. That's what we've been preparing for a long time, probably too long. A sovereign debt crisis where people lose confidence that America can pay back its debts. And we can print our money, so you can always get back your $1 million or however much you buy. It'll always come back because we can print the money, but it might not be worth anything. You see, it might not be worth anything in 30 years because if nobody wants to buy it, that means we're going to buy it by printing new money, which will cause inflation and cause the value of the dollar to go down. So this is a new world order where the United States is maybe going to finally lose its world global reserve status, which is what's happened to every other country that did the same thing as us. I believe it was the Netherlands when they dominated world trade. Their money was king and it was the world reserve asset for a long time. Then it was the United Kingdom. They had the best navy. They dominated the seas. They had dominated trade. So everybody liked the pound. And then America, now we dominate the seas. We dominated. And now what comes next? Will it be another fake fiat currency, or will it actually be something like gold again? That's the conspiracy. Will it actually be gold again? Because we realize now that printing money actually is bad for people, because this is why our quality of life has gone down so much, because we did what every stupid empire does, and we started clipping our coins and having less and less actual value in our money, which is what we literally did. We discontinued the penny. We'll discontinue the nickel because the nickel is worth at least 10 cents already in copper. Well, in copper and nickel, but mostly copper. And eventually we'll just replace it, just like we did the penny in 1982. In 1982, we replaced the penny. It used to be 95% copper. Now it's 5% copper. I think that's the ratio. We did that in 1982. Replaced the valuable part with zinc. And then it's still, however many years later, became too expensive to make. It's still worth more than a penny in real value because the dollar's worth so much less. So this is the situation we're in. Okay, I showed you that article. Olga Nestrova. Let me see who she is. I'll just show you the different reports. Okay, foreign affairs journalist. Let's see. She's reporting Europe may begin selling U.S. assets in response to a new conflict with the United States, a move that could trigger a dollar collapse, Bloomberg reports. Deutsche Bank analysts warn Washington's key vulnerability is living off global financing, and Europe may decide it no longer wants to bankroll the United States. Europe holds 40% of our treasuries globally, over $3 trillion in treasuries. So that's a story from today. One Danish pension fund announced that they're going to sell all of their U.S. treasuries by the end of the month. Danish pension fund Academiker Pension announces they will sell all U.S. treasuries by month end, citing rising credit risk under Donald Trump. The fund CIO says U.S. finances are no longer sustainable due to weak fiscal discipline, a softer dollar, and Trump's push for Greenland. Greenland, which if we're going to buy it, we're supposedly going to buy it for $700 billion, which we don't have. So it'll just increase our debt. So this is a picture of the 30-year bond yield spiking. It's now yielding almost 5%. It happened really fast. So that's our debt, which is nothing compared to Japan, but that's our 30-year bond yield, which means mortgage rates are going up right now, every day, which means that property prices are going to be going down in response to that. So that's what's going on with that. This is Japan's 30-year government bond yield. Since I talked about Japan, it was insane. It's not, I mean, that's the chart for Japan over time, starting in 2000. That chart starts in 2007 and goes through today. So that's the Japanese government bond yield. Japan is the single largest holder of U.S. debt, U.S. treasuries. They hold $1.3 trillion in U.S. treasuries. And what they need to do to stop this from happening is to buy their own bonds. And in order to do that, they might sell ours, which will make our rates spike like their rates are spiking. So they have money, debt, which is money, in dollars, which now they might be forced to, they call it repatriate, which means they actually might have to sell our money for their money to make sure that they don't have a complete debt crisis. Their government just called a snap election and promised a bunch of stimulus. So, and Japan, once again, it has been the piggy bank for the entire world, and that no longer is going to work. And it worked for a long time. So what is Trump doing? He's retweeting someone who says that NATO and the UN are the problem. The real threat to America is not China or Russia, but it's actually the UN and NATO. So he retweeted that. Here is Scott Bessent explaining that it's not because of Greenland and that it's actually because of Japan. He explained that on what's his name show, The War Room. So I'll play that.
I believe the markets are going down because the Japanese bond market had a 6 standard deviation move for the past 2 days. That would be in their 10-year bonds. I've been in touch with my economic counterparts in Japan and urged them to take the necessary measures to stabilize their bond market, but that's spilling all over into all bond markets. German yields are up, French yields are up, US yields are up. Again, it's mostly the Japanese bond market, got nothing to do with Greenland.
Nothing to do with Greenland, he said.
I believe the markets are
with Greenland. Well, let's see. Let's see what's happening at Davos. The European Union is announcing a trade deal with India. instead of us.
The next weekend, I will travel to India. There's still work to do, but we are on the cusp of a historic trade agreement. Indeed, some call it the mother of all deals. The next weekend.
Okay, so that's instead of a deal with, they're talking about backing out of the deal with us, using something they call a bazooka, which I guess is them counter-tariffing us in the order of $100 billion or something. And they're opening up trade to India, and Macron wearing sunglasses has another country in mind.
China is welcome, but what we need is more Chinese foreign direct investment in Europe in some key sectors to contribute to our growth, to transfer some technologies, and not just to export towards Europe some devices or products which sometimes don't have the same standards or are much more subsidized as the one being produced in Europe.
There you go.
China is
so anyway, they're opening up to China, and he's wearing sunglasses, which there you can have plenty of conspiracy theories about. I think they look kind of cool. It's like Biden used to wear his shades. Here's what Trump says about Macron joining the Board of Peace, which nobody wants to join right now. The way it's structured, the Board of Peace, nobody likes, mostly because he invited a bunch of dictators, which we prefer actually to democracies. Actually, we show a preference for dictatorships over democracies at this time. So,
have you invited President Putin to be a member of the Board of Peace? Yeah, he's been invited. And do you have any response to President Macron saying he will not join the Board of Peace? Oh, did he say that? Well, nobody wants him because he's going to be out of office very soon. So, that's all right. What I'll do is if they feel like Costco, I'll put a 200% tariff on his wines and champagnes, and he'll join. But he doesn't have to join. If he said that, you're probably giving it to me a little bit differently. But if he actually did say that, but as you know, he's going to be out of office in a few months.
So that's about Macron. He's going to put a 200% tariff. The tariffs are great. He is the tariff king. He wields the tariffs like a machete. So anybody, and he ended all the wars using tariffs too, supposedly. So, which once again, we had to pay for. Tax on American citizens. Here is what so Canada is drawing up plans for us to invade Canada, and Trump is posting memes, AI generated memes like this one, which shows a map with the United States all over it, the United States flag over Canada, Greenland, and Venezuela. So we are actually, or Trump is actually threatening Canada. Canada is drawing up plans for a U.S. invasion of Canada, which would involve them doing guerrilla warfare after we overwhelm their conventional security services within a matter of days. So they're drawing up a plan which they would start engaging in guerrilla warfare just to kill as many U.S. soldiers as possible, sort of like what happened to Afghanistan. So anyway, Canada's so let me play you what Mark Carney said at Davos.
We knew the story of the international rules-based order was partially false, that the strongest would exempt themselves when convenient, that trade rules were enforced asymmetrically. And we knew that international law applied with varying rigor depending on the identity of the accused or the victim. This fiction was useful. And American hegemony in particular helped provide public goods, open sea lanes, a stable financial system, collective security, and support for frameworks for resolving disputes. So we placed the sign in the window. We participated in the rituals, and we largely avoided calling out the gaps between rhetoric and reality. This bargain no longer works.
It's over.
Let me be direct. We are in the midst of a rupture, not a transition. Over the past 2 decades, a series of crises in finance, health, energy, and geopolitics have laid bare the risks of extreme global integration. But more recently, Great powers have begun using economic integration as weapons. Tariffs as leverage, financial infrastructure as coercion, supply chains as vulnerabilities to be exploited. You cannot live within the lie of mutual benefit through integration when integration becomes the source of your subordination.
So he's actually talking about globalism. So actually, we're making people anti-globalist, which means actually they don't want to deal with us anymore because we were actually the ultimate globalists. So people are waking up. Maybe that's good. Maybe that's good. They realize that it doesn't help. You don't want to rely on other countries who you can't depend on because China can cut off your pharmaceuticals. The United States can threaten to take your country, etc. And so the age of globalization, as far as like what he was saying, is coming to an end. So we are approaching the Great Reset, the New World Order. So let's see what other people said about Trump. Let's see if this is in English. German Chancellor Merz said they will respond. Actually, let me just play you Scott Bessent, who threatens people not to respond. Do not escalate against us. Well, they are escalating.
Again, I would say this is the same kind of hysteria that we heard on April 2nd. There was a panic. And what I'm urging everyone here to do is sit back, take a deep breath, and let things play out. As I said on April 2nd, the worst thing countries can do is escalate against the United States.
The worst thing for us is if they escalate against the United States. It's not the worst thing for them. Let's see. What is going to happen? Here's German Chancellor Merz.
Ich habe eben darauf hingewiesen,
Damn it, it's in another language, so I have to read it to you. He said, the American government knows that we can also respond on our side. I don't want this, but if it becomes necessary, we will, of course, defend our European interests as well as our German national interests. The economy in the United States is not doing as well as the American government expected a year ago. In my opinion, this is also related to tariff policy. That's from the German premier. Belgian prime minister says in another language, he said, we must respond to this. There's no point in being soft anymore. If someone says, I want to take NATO territory from you or else I'll start a trade war, then we will start a trade war. Jordan Bardella, the leader of France's far-right party. So normally we get along with far-right governments. Donald Trump does. Normally the far-right governments like Trump, and Trump likes them. So we support Orban. We support far-right governments all around the world. But even this far-right leader, the national, and I say far-right, that's what everybody says, far-right, or they're just not left-wing. National Rally Party, he said in another language, in French in this case, the United States is presenting us with a choice: accept dependency disguised as partnership, or act as sovereign powers capable of defending our interests. When a U.S. president threatens a European territory while using trade pressure, it is not dialogue, it is coercion, and our credibility is at stake. Greenland has become a strategic pivot in a world returning to imperial logic. Yielding today would set a dangerous precedent, exposing other European and even French overseas territories tomorrow. The European Union cannot remain silent. The agreement negotiated last summer must be suspended. Our anti-coercion instruments must be activated and targeted measures adopted. This is not escalation. It is self-defense. The choice is simple: submission or sovereignty. Europe must choose freedom, responsibility, and control of its own destiny. Now, even Gavin Newsom is over there in Davos telling European leaders that they're pussies. In fact, that they're worse than that. He says something very foul when you think about its implications, which is that they're on Trump's jock, as the Beastie Boys might have used to say. They're on his jock, and that they need to get off their knees.
Newsom, do you have a message for Europeans who are concerned about the messages from the White House around Greenland this week?
Yeah, it's time to buck up. It's time to get serious and stop being complicit. It's time to stand tall and firm, have a backbone. I've seen this in the United States, the supine Congress playing both sides, saying one thing on a text or a tweet, another publicly.
Should Europe respond with tariffs?
It's time to stand tall and strong.
Does that mean responding with
tariffs? Time to stand united. You make that determination. I don't make that determination.
But when you say standing tall, what do you mean?
Just I can't take this complicity. People rolling over. I should have brought up a bunch of knee pads for all the world leaders. I mean, handing out crowns and this is pathetic. Nobel Prizes that are being given away. I mean, it's just pathetic. And I hope people understand how pathetic they look on the world stage. I mean, at least from an American perspective, it's embarrassing.
So what should Europe be doing?
You should decide, the Europeans should decide for themselves what to do. But one thing they can't do is what they've been doing. And they've been playing. This guy's playing folks for fools. And it's embarrassing.
Europeans think this is diplomacy and this will ultimately
this is
work.
Diplomacy with Donald Trump? He's a T-Rex. You mate with him or he devours you. One or the other.
And Europe's being
people
devoured?
need to stand. No, the Europeans could be if they continue to down this path and process. They need to stand tall, stand firm, stand united.
So he is asking for America to get effed. And no, I normally wouldn't play Gavin Newsom, but he is the leading candidate for the other side. And the Republican side, while it used to be favored for at least the 2028, I'm just not sure how anyone who's connected to Donald Trump can win in 2028 the way things are going. That's the unfortunate thing about what Trump is doing just over the last, just since the beginning of this year. Both with Greenland, but also with ICE, is that he's just losing popular support left and right, and especially independents. And its chances for 2026 are already out the window, but chances for 2028, when you have Vance supporting everything Trump does and everybody else supporting everything Trump does, if it ends up ruining our economy, then, God help us not having somebody like Gavin Newsom get elected in 2028. That's all. So, but yeah, that's what he said. It's kind of crazy what he said, because he's asking them to retaliate against America, which is bad for America. That's all. It is weird what he said. And then he said they needed knee pads, which is very vulgar. Here is the speech that's the most important from the World Economic Forum, from Davos, from Ursula, who points out that everything started in 1971.
And the decision to delink the US dollar from gold. In an instant, the foundations of the Bretton Woods system and the entire global economic order set up after the war effectively collapsed. But it also had two major effects. It inadvertently created the conditions for what would become a truly global order. And it provided a sharp lesson for Europe and on the need to strengthen its economic and political power. It was a warning to reduce our dependencies, in this case, on a foreign currency. The world may be very different today, without any question, but I believe the lesson is very much the same. that geopolitical shocks can and must serve as an opportunity for Europe. And in my view, the seismic change we are going through today is an opportunity, in fact, a necessity, to build a new form of Europe.
Don't know why I cut short, but she said the world order collapsed when we broke away from gold, when the US dollar broke away from gold. But I guess it took them this long to figure it out. Let's see how gold is doing. Let me just look in on it. Oh, wow. It's already up significantly. Silver is close to $95. Gold is about to hit $4,800. It's at $47.94 today. And you don't have to buy a full ounce of gold if you buy, let me remember the name of it. PAX G. It's cryptocurrency, which is tied to physical gold, where apparently they have physical gold that's audited in vaults. You can buy $10 worth today. And I could tell you how to do it if you're interested. But PAX G is one way to buy fractional gold that's relatively, secure. Hopefully it's audited, and apparently you can trade it in for gold if you have enough of it. But you can also buy something similar on the US stock exchange too, I'm sure. And silver you can buy too. You can buy SLV or PSLV on the stock market, which is apparently backed by physical gold as well, or physical silver, that is. So, but physical is the safest if you know how to store it. But anyway, that's her talking about gold. We may be going back to a gold standard, in which case gold would be worth at least $10,000 an ounce. If we go back to a gold standard, they would revalue gold instantaneously to something much, much higher than what it is right now. Much, much higher than what it is right now. If we actually decided to go back to a gold standard, which we may be forced to do, I guess. But that's down the road. But if that happens, if gold is money, it's worth a lot more than it is now. That's all. And Bitcoin might end up being too. But Bitcoin people just don't see that way for some reason. It just doesn't have the historical value. So anyway, here's what's going on with Greenland, which Scott Bessent says is not what it matters, but it actually is. Here's
How far are you willing to go to acquire Greenland?
You'll find out.
There you go. 700 billion is what they're talking about. 700 billion. Here is a Danish member of parliament.
Thank you. Urmează domnul Anders Vistisen.
Let me put this in words you might understand. Mr. President, fuck off.
Then he starts speaking another language. He just said that to Donald Trump. Mr. President, fuck off. Here's what people in Greenland are doing to make fun of us. Just like people in other countries do, because they don't do, people like, nobody does drugs like Americans, just as a sign of the decadence of our society, how great we are. Nobody does drugs like Americans. Nobody does fentanyl anywhere else. And they could. It's cheap. It would be imported to other places if people wanted it, but only Americans enjoy it, because I guess this is what it looks like. This is bringing American culture to Greenland. So that's them in the snow making fun of us. Bringing American culture to Greenland. Okay. And then Donald Trump is sharing personal text messages from Macron. So it's a total breakdown of everything that used to be right and true. Now Trump is sharing private text messages from world leaders. This is where Macron says I do not understand what you are doing on Greenland. Like the rest of us, we have no idea what he's doing. Only Stephen Miller knows. And then creating AI pictures. There was another AI picture. What else is he sharing? let's see. Trump, Greenland, AI. Let me just show you the other things that he's doing for fun. Yeah, right here. This is the kind of things Trump is doing for fun. He's sharing this kind of thing on Truth Social. Very helpful, I'm sure. Very helpful. It's him, JD, and Rubio and Marco planting a flag in Greenland that says Greenland, U.S. territory established 2026. He just thinks he can speak things into being. He thinks he's all powerful, literally. I think he's lost his mind. And he's controlled by people like Stephen Miller, who is absolutely 100% insane. So that's where we stand right now. I could play you some stuff about ICE, but I'll just save that. The ICE situation is another story. But this is what's going on. That's our president right now. So, and because of it, now our gold is going up in value. So gold just hit $4,800. Gold futures just hit $4,800. And Bitcoin, let's check in on. Here, this is the chart. This is just gold right here. Just hit 4801. Silver is still just under 95, 94.9. Copper isn't doing anything special. Platinum is up. Then let's take a look at cryptocurrency to see if it's recovering at all. Bitcoin is not dropping like a rock. It's at 88.8 right now. Bitcoin is. But down, everything in the crypto market is just getting slaughtered right now because it's just not treated the same. It's just not treated the same way. This website slows down my computer and my camera. You just saw me lag. All right, so that's what's going on, guys. How do you like it? That's what's going on. This will be an entirely financial show. We can talk about ICE later. We'll follow and see what happens tomorrow. We could be headed toward an actual collapse, in which case gold will go down. If we actually hit crisis level, then gold will go down, and then I'll tell you to buy it. In the meantime, you could buy some. It'll crash though, along with everything else, if we really hit a crisis, and then it'll be a good idea to buy some. But it'll come back very quickly after we start printing the money again. So that's what's up. All right, let me check my super chats. Thanks for tuning into the show. Glad to see a number of people here today, even for an economic show. That's good news. Drury Lane bought 3 coffees, who says, subsidizing the economic show. It's at the core of all the other news, and this show makes it easy to understand. Thank you, Drury Lane, for your support of the economic show. 3 coffees is good. That's enough for coffee and donuts, which I'll buy tomorrow. So thanks for that. Appreciate it. Thanks, Drury Lane, for supporting the economic show. Appreciate it. All right. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Good to see you guys. And let's see what happens tomorrow. For now, that's what it is.